So that's a perfect transition because I'm working in lapis sediments with Pierre Sabatier. So to present myself quickly, so I'm a PhD student in my last year, and I'm working at Eastern Laboratory. So today I will bring you with me to travel a bit in Turkey with this presentation entitled Combine Unfold and Offfold Paleoseismic Evidences in Lake Iznik. So let's move in Turkey, where the North Anatolian Fault crosses the country for 1,500 kilometers. So as you can see on the western part of Turkey, the fault is divided into 3 branches. So there is the northern segment, which is in the Marmara Sea, just south of Istanbul. You have the middle branch of the fault, which is south of the Marmara Sea, and it borders the south of Lake Iznik, the one we will study today, and the southern branch, which is further to the south on land. So there are 2 main points to remember in this context. So the first one is that, as you can see, since 1939 we have a sequence of huge earthquakes propagating from east to west. And the last one was in 1999 in Izmir. And since this time, nothing. The other thing is that, so the northern branch is slipping at the rate of 25 mm per year, but the 2 other ones are slipping at the rate of 5 mm per year, so 5 times less. Natural hazard models, seismic hazard models took into account most of the time, instrumental seismicity, so the last 150 years. So this kind of study lead us to think that the northern branch is more active, and it is. But it also leads us to interpret the middle strand and the southern strand to be inactive. And so this is one question I raised here. Can we assess that the fault is inactive in this really short time window? So for that, we would like to go further into answer this question. But this area and Lake Iznik not only hide long-term history. Lake Iznik also hide recent history. Here you can see that there is a basilica underwater in Lake Iznik that has been discovered in 2014 by Professor Mustapha. And this basilica is really important for history, because it certainly hosted the first council of the Christians. So what is the first council? It took place in 325 AD, and this is like today, this is a meeting where the bishops set the rules of the religion. And this place was totally unknown before this discovery in 2014. And this discovery raised many questions, because we would like to know when this basilica has been destroyed and by what. And we think it could be an earthquake. So I'm working on that question also, which one. So, to answer this question about paleoseismic evidence, some other works have been done in the literature. So, for example, paleoseismic trenches along the middle of the fault. And they didn't give any reliable results, because this is not really a good area to do trenches, because this is really anthropogenic, and there is no really charcoal to date the events. But last year there was a study that has been published by Banjan and collaborators about archaeoseismicity. Archaeoseismicity is the study of archaeological buildings and the earthquake damages. And this study told us that we have 3 damage episodes that are recorded in the city of Iznik. So one between the 6th and the 8th centuries, one between the 9th and the 11th centuries, and one after the 14th centuries, and we will talk about that later again. So in my thesis, I'm working on lake sediments that can provide a complementary and a more continuous paleoseismic record than this method. So I present you Lake Iznik. This is the 5th largest Turkish lake, so 30 kilometers per 11. This is quite huge. And you can see that the middle span of the North Anatolian Fault is limiting the lake to the south. This is a tectonic lake, which is composed of 3 subbassins, and the deepest one into the south is 7 kilometers. This lake has also one outlet to the west going to the Marmara Sea. So I will summarize my methodology in an easy way. So my methodology is resumed like this, so A, B, C, D, E. So that means I'm using seismic amplitudes and bathymetry to retrieve morphologies as a lake bottom, and I'm using core sediments and dating to retrieve an event chronology. So this is the data set I'm using for this study. So we have a bathymetric map, and we use seismic acquisitions, so from an old campaign and a new one we did in July 2021. And I will present you here some sediment cores on the southeastern part of the lake. So as you can see on this figure, if I zoom in on the southeastern part of the lake, we can find some straight lineaments, which is not very common to find that at the bottom of the lake. So when we saw that on the bathymetric map, we thought about potentially a fault. So I will go step by step. So here you have the bathymetric map, and you can see that there is a topographic jump. So what we can say about that? First, if this is a fault, there is a normal component. If not, we couldn't see it in the landscape. And also, this fault should be maybe active because it is not totally hidden by the overlapping sediment. So if I look at the seismic data, so here you have a profile crossing the fault, and so you can see still the topographic jump at the fault location, and you can see that also we have some loss of penetration at the fault location. This is due to gas which is flowing on the fault plane. And we have also some reflections that are offset of about 40 centimeters at the fault place. One other marker is that following the fault trace on the lake, we can find some pock marks. These pock marks are depressions caused by escaping gas, which is due in the literature mostly by active faults. And at the surface of the lake, you can see some bubbles due to this gas. So in the next slide, I will focus on these two sediment cores. So these are short sediment cores, that means they are 4 meters in length. And in this lake, in 4 meters, we have like 2 millennia, so the archaeological period. So here I present you on the left the age models of the sediment cores. So in the y-axis you have the depth, and on the x-axis you have the age, and then you have the plot. These are radiocarbon ages. So to remember, these sediment cores have the same length. So they should have recorded the same time. But in fact, no. They record 800 years of difference. So that means something happening history to explain that. So top right, I did a small reconstruction. So everything is at scale. The topography is from the bathymetry, the distance between the cores, the length of the core, the thicknesses of the units, everything is at scale. And what you can see is that we have a strong thickness variations in the light green unit on either side of the fault. And at the base of this stratigraphic unit, we could observe what we call the Niven deposit. What is a Niven deposit? This is like an avalanche deposit due to ground shaking, mostly due to earthquake. So we have both markers of a rupture of this tectonic fault. So what is interesting here is to date the base of this unit. And radiocarbon ages give us an age of 1077, approximately 77 years age. So, first of all, this age is in accordance with archaeoseismology study by Banjan. But if you remember, I told you that Iznik city was a historical city. That means we have a really good archives about past earthquake. So I look at that, and I found a text that said that in 1065 AD, a really huge earthquake occurred in Nikaya. Nikaya is the old name of Iznik, and this earthquake totally destroyed the city. And there is a mention of this earthquake that could have destroyed the place where the council of the most holy and orthodox father, blah blah blah, was destroyed. So that means mainly we have here the evidence of the last rupture of the North Anatolian fault, and also we might have an idea of with the earthquake that have destroyed the basilica. But this has to be confirmed by the archaeologists. So, just to conclude in a more general way for the one who are not in the studying this kind of topics. So, at the beginning we have this horizontal stratigraphic layers, and then we have this normal component in 1065 during this rupture, and then we have these overlapping sediments. So after the earthquake. So to conclude, this study is quite important because we discovered a new active fault in Lake Iznik. So this fault was totally unknown, and we showed that this fault ruptured 1 millennia ago. That means since 1,000 years, this fault accumulated stress. And but the problem is that here we have just one earthquake. So for sure we would like to go further in time and then go further in depth. That's why in November we went again to Turkey with a huge platform from the CNRS, and we retrieved this time 15 meters of sedimenters. So this work should have been done at the beginning of my thesis, but you know the situation is quite complicated. And so just to finish, on top left, I show you here a seismic acquisition, and you can see on the middle there is a fault trace, and you can see these smile shapes. These smile shapes are co-seismic deposits. So you have the fault movement, the normal component, and you have this kind of deposit that are deposited during the co-seismic phases. And then you can see that the first one is date of 1065 AD, and then you can see that we have at least one other earthquake, so we need to take it. And so this is an ongoing work. Thank you.